Compelling copywriting, the top 7 ways to put your personality on the page. These days, rule number 1 in the online marketing universe is that you need blogs, articles, and books to market yourself and your business. Supposedly, when you write this kind of content, it sort of magically establishes you as an expert in your niche. After all, you're the person who's actually writing about it, and it helps you create a relationship with your readers, who are suddenly hearing from you on a regular basis. These two important elements combine, ideally, to make you the person consumers turn to you when they're ready to buy the kind of product or service you have to offer. Unfortunately, you may not be a natural writer or just may not have the time to do it properly, especially if you're a professional who's been trained to do other, more meaningful things, like fix people's teeth or help them save for their retirement. And that can be a problem. Because believe it or not, if your content doesn't say and do the right things, you might actually be sabotaging yourself. You might be driving potential clients away with the very blogs and articles that are supposed to be attracting them. So right now, we're going to offer you some 100% free training on what to do and what not to do to make sure your content works for you. Since we do this kind of ghostwriting for a living, these are the rules we like to follow. We'll start with the good news. This may put us out of business, but you absolutely do not have to be a professional copywriter to pull this off. The bad news is, it's not enough to just fill up a page with a random selection of words, although our son once wrote an essay like that in 5th grade and actually got a B.A.S. ghostwriters for a variety of professionals, marketers, business owners, attorneys, dentists, etc. We've found that it all comes down to 7 basic, but significant, things we do to make our clients' blogs, articles, and books compelling, memorable, and above all, readable. Point 1. Failure is an option a lot of the time. When we ghostwrite for people, they're afraid to give us their best stories, because those stories are about when they screwed up and failed. For example, there was the tax lawyer who had his own IRS nightmare back in the day. We completely understand, nobody wants to look stupid. But the point is, the people we ghostwrite for aren't stupid. They're usually very successful. When they did screw up, they learned from it, and the lesson they learned is probably something their readers would find valuable. And even if they don't, people love triumph over adversity stories, and they love it even more when they hear that successful people mess up just like they do, too. Everyone likes a good story quick. What kinds of movies do people go see? Traditional Hollywood types or documentaries? The answer is pretty obvious. Most people are going to spend their $12 to see the new Will Smith blockbuster instead of, say, a movie about how beavers build dams. They'd rather spend 90 minutes with characters in a story instead of sitting through a lot of dry facts and figures. That's kind of like school or work. This is not to say that supplying valuable information isn't important. You want people to understand what you do and what you're offering. But relating personal anecdotes that illustrate the information is a different story, a story somebody might actually want to read. You'll achieve your objective of getting your information out there, plus you'll get people interested in who you are at the same time. Which is what we call a win-win. Point 3. Nobody wants to hang out with a salesman or woman. Yes, your main, primary, bottom line objective is always going to be to sell your product or service. You're doing this to make money, not to win a Pulitzer Prize. But if selling is all you do, you're not going to win any prizes with your readers. There's a reason people fast forward their DVRs when the commercials come on. Nobody wants to just sit there and be sold to. You have to give to get, which means either supplying useful info, like we're doing for you right now, or entertaining your readers with stories or humor so they keep on reading. You can still sell, just wrap what you're selling in an entertaining or informative package, and it will be a whole lot more effective. Point 4. Bauthentic. Back in our screenwriting days, we once had a meeting with a movie producer about rewriting a script. He explained very plaintively that there were 2 themes in the current version of the screenplay that he just couldn't reconcile: be yourself and don't be a phony. Yes, we knew both of those meant the same thing, but, for some reason, he didn't. To thine own self be true is one of Shakespeare's most famous lines. For a reason, people don't like phonies and they don't trust them. And if they don't trust them, they're not going to buy from them. So be yourself. And don't be a phony. And by the way, the script we mentioned above was about a country where all the residents continually belched and farted. We frankly thought it might be best if they weren't themselves. Point 5. Have a point. CNN host Larry King used to have a USA Today column today that we, among others, thought was hilarious because it was entirely composed of the most random sentences in the world. It had absolutely no point, but he got away with it because it was Larry King. You probably aren't. If you want to be sure, check and see if you're wearing brightly colored suspenders. Pick a subject, have an opening and a closing, and make sure you really have something to say. Yes, it can be silly or a goof, but remember it's not just you and your friends reading it. Hopefully, you want other people to be able to understand what you're talking about and feel like they got something out of it. Point 6. Be more than your business. One day one of us was reading an article by the legendary marketer Dan Kennedy, when he began to talk about how he was a professional harness racer. If you've seen pictures of Dan Kennedy, it's kind of hard to picture him in a sulky behind a horse, at least for us. But it gave us a whole new perspective on the guy. Sharing some of your personal life with your readers helps them see you as an actual human being, instead of just another business person who's marketing to them. It helps them form a bond with you. Allow some of your humanity to show through in your content and you'll build online relationships a lot more easily. Point 7. Humor always helps. When you watch a TV newscast, do you ever notice how the show usually ends? After all the gloom and doom and destruction, they usually wrap things up with a funny, cute story. It usually involves an animal doing something it shouldn't be able to do, for some reason, like a squirrel driving a car. The TV people do this for a very specific reason. It leaves the viewers with a good feeling after all the horrible stuff that's been thrown at them for the last half hour or so. Now, we're not saying your content is as disturbing as the TV news unless you're a dentist writing about infected gums, but the effect is the same. Humor in your content helps you deliver your information in an entertaining way, and a closing joke or one-liner leaves your reader with a smile and a lasting good impression. Do you need to be David Letterman? No. Just be yourself and share what you think is funny. Although as a general rule, make sure it's a joke you'd be comfortable telling your mom or your priest. If you don't feel comfortable doing all 7 of these things, that's okay. The copy police aren't going to hunt you down and shut down your blog or anything. But we do have one overall suggestion we think may be even more important than those other 7. So maybe we should have done 8? Whatever, you're getting it now. And it is, write like you're talking to an actual person. Maybe even read what you write out loud. Remember, your goal here isn't to sound like a professor giving a lecture in school. You don't need to use big words and drown people in arcane facts to prove how smart you are. Because what you will do instead is put people to sleep, or make them feel like they are reading for a homework assignment. Instead, be conversational and accessible. Use contractions, vernacular, and be casual. When you're marketing yourself and forming relationships, what works on the page is the same thing that works when you're actually meeting someone in person. Just take a deep breath and talk to them. Copyright 2010 joined at the hip Inc.